Hello, this is Max Drake. I want to talk about the visualization stuff that I've been developing through here. Initially on this stuff here, I was pulling information from New Zealand Ministry of Health and getting the data, and I've got a bit of a hover over there. Not the most elegant, but it's actually doing, it's functional as far as I'm getting the information. I've got the path lines and things like that, and I've now made a table that I'm using AM charts to actually create, and I've also got a bar chart through here as well that's been created. So all of that, and then I've actually done it into three. I've got a container and I've got three different divs so that I've got them spread across here with some information. I've also got some headers through here with the latest information as to where they actually stand with the date of the things. And then through here I've actually got the date when the first one was started, how many days we are into it, and how many days we're into our lockdown of the 4 weeks that we actually have. This is the area that I'm working on now. Now, this other one that I've actually been doing was I've been actually going into Excel. I've been using from the web to actually get tables through there, and then every day I refresh these. Sometimes they miss a line, so I've got to come back through, adjust this code, or really what I actually do is I actually just copy and paste it, and paste it into my Notepad Plus. I save it through here. I then come through into my browser and refresh that information, and then it shows me updated stuff. If anything's wrong or looks odd, I actually have to go back through and fix it. So it's taken a little bit of maintenance to do that, but that's the only source of data that I've got onto that. So the next level that I actually wanted to do is I actually wanted some time series, and I want to look at the things over time. So, and another thing that I want to do was I want to start playing with APIs. So I played with them a little bit before, but I haven't been that successful with it. And so I suddenly thought I'd get my head around it. So I've seen that Postman had got a few APIs on COVID-19. And anyway, there was a live stream going through and describing how they use that data. So I thought, oh, well, that's fantastic. This is totally the topic that I'm actually involved in at this point in time. I'm really interested to see what they're doing. So inside Postman, you actually get an endpoint of where you're doing. So this is my endpoint here, and I might just put Ireland in there now, and I do is a get request, and it says go and give me this information that I can get based on this thing here, and this is what I get in return. So I'm getting back a JSON array, and inside here you can look at it in other formats. You can look at it as text or XML or HTML or JSON, and this is pretty file, or you can actually have it raw, and you can preview it as to how it would be viewed on I think a web page. So those were the things they're doing. But part of that web thing that they were doing was they started to suddenly saying, look, let's visualize that data. So inside of so it's dragging in the information, and then they've actually written the code for actually using the script for using a map and some JSON code in here. I thought, some JavaScript code in here for actually presenting that onto this chart. So I thought, oh, this is absolutely cool. I can just cut and paste all of this straight into the web page. In fact, I can't, and this is where I'm just starting to learn about these things. So I couldn't take this code because part of these templatey things and part of the code down here is all to do with specifically with Postman. Now, as I said, I'm just sort of learning through this particular way. And one of the things that I was doing was, so when I get this is just a big array. So it's an array, and what I was finding, so I then went on and started to say, well, okay, then what can I work on? Now, this guy here is fantastic. To watch him write in JavaScript, it just blows my mind. My JavaScript, I really struggle with it, and it takes me a long time. He's done these tutorials through here, and he's got 3 examples of actually pulling information in using this fetch function. So I have to use the fetch function inside JavaScript to actually pull in that information onto the web page. So when I actually ended up with that situation, I ended up with a bit of dilemma. I started to have some information. which I've actually created through my sort of Excel process to actually build things up. Then I'm doing another lot of JavaScript, pulling things in from an API. So I'm getting information from two different areas. So I thought, well, do I want to carry on building through here and actually integrating the two together and stuff, or is that going to be too messy? And in the end, I suddenly said, no, the learning experience at this point in time is actually just see what are we going to learn. So what I ended up doing was when I suddenly thought, no, I've got that far, I've done this parts here and I've done that here, I'm going to do my charts, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sit it onto another page. So therefore I can just deal. Now I can switch between the two pages. So this one takes me back to that one, and that one takes me through to this one, and these are actually both on my server. The next thing that I actually wanted was the API calling that I actually get. It just gives you, if we just go back to that Postman there, it just gives you a whole lot of numbers, and basically it's the cumulative thing. So that's yet one day, and the next day we've gone to 2910 from 2615. So that means the change daily is 2910 minus 2615. So that'll be the daily change. Now, of all of the things that you see, I think a lot of the daily information gives you an indication of how things are going. You know, are things falling off? Are people recovering? What's actually happening with the deaths and things like that, you know, or are these things just peaking up? When you actually just look as confirmed cases, you just get this asymptotal thing, just this line just disappearing up through the ceiling all over the place. So it doesn't really tell you anything, especially the fact that some of these cases, there's less cases happening through here, whereas all you see is just the other one rising and rising and rising. So that's what I wanted to do. So I actually had to do a bit of coding through there to actually take arrays. So what I actually had to do was take the total array, delete the last number or the last item on the array, on one array, make another copy of the array and delete the first number. Then I could subtract one from the other and get the difference each day so that I could do this. So I could do that then for confirmed things, so I could do them for the recovery cases, and I could do them for the death, so I could describe that. So inside there was a little bit of jiggery pokery, and this was the code. So there's the API that I just used as a constant that was sitting into there, and then I use this a sync function to actually get the API, and the sync basically says get it, and you wait until the data comes in, because if you try running straight away, it's going to break itself. So and then also bring the information back as JSON. Now, it did take me bloody ages to actually get this, because I couldn't drill down. I'd get the numbers, and if you actually just look at the data as it comes through here, there's this number here. But this is confirmed, so here's your key pair. There's the confirmed, which is the key pair, and there's the number that goes with it. So all of these, you've got key pairs. This one doesn't have a key pair, but in fact it does, and it's called dates, I think. So I could reach in and I could get count and I could get result, but I couldn't reach in any further to get these ones, and I was getting extremely frustrated. And I wasted most of the day just trying to get any of that done. I was getting so frustrated by the thing. Anyway, one of them says just go back and actually have a look at the examples of the API. So this is the actual API, which is the COVID API, which is from Johns Hopkins University. So here I'm actually calling it off, and then I was actually just calling off the country code. But then suddenly it says you can do it with the time series like that. So if I just actually grab that, I wonder if I can just grab that. I just copy that, and if I put that into Postman now, and hopefully I haven't got too many I's in there, it brings the data through. Now you see at this point in time, I've got that. So if the overall array is called data, I can say data.result, and then I can go result, square brackets 0, which means give me the first one, and then I can say confirmed, and then it'll give me this piece of information through here. So that means that I can now iterate through all of these. so I can iterate based on date, based on death. So that was a big breakthrough for me, where I could start doing these iterations. So var iter thing for the overall length of data count, iterate through, and then give me, so I created empty arrays, and then I iterate the information through from date, from confirmed, from recovered, and from death into separate arrays through there. So that was the way that I could actually suck all of that information in. So suddenly, instead of you've got the JSON, you suddenly got a set of 4 or 5 arrays that you can start playing with and start working on. So that's what I was actually doing through there. So I was quite rapt with that. And then once I got that, I could actually get the chart. So I followed this gentleman's tutorial on charts and to do multi-line charts. So I was quite pleased with that. 2 other things that actually happened later on was when I was going through and doing some research, I found out about these things called JavaScript Template Literals. This is a great tutorial by this gentleman here, and he's one thing which he's very good at with these ones is that he has a raw code pen that you can go through, and it's pretty much where it is at the beginning of the tutorial as it does, so you can actually code along with him, and it also gives you the finished product, which I love, because a lot of times I just want to go to the finished product and play with it and adjust it for what I actually want. And he uses that code, or the JSON, pulling in the JSON data, he builds this website from all of those. So I thought it was pretty amazing. But anyway, I suddenly saw the power of these template literals. The other thing that I learned about as well was Visual Studio Code, which you can get for free, which is just a coding programming package editor. But it has this live server extension. Now, what this one here does is, if I'm in here and I'm actually got my graph through there, I can do... and I'm just going to jump up to the top. I can do start date 1, and then I can go open in live server, and it opens in live server. I'm just going to reduce this down through here, and I can change that there, back, and then just save it inside here, and it automatically updates there. So if I just add a whole lot of things, I'll save, you see it automatically happens there. So that I suddenly thought was brilliant. So suddenly I've got to go into a different package. This has been a great thing to use, and not another thing. Now, another thing there is that I found out about is this thing called Emmet. Now, if I do a paragraph, it automatically pops the closing paragraph through there. So all I have to do is the bit in between, which is fantastic. Now from there I can just go Control Save, and that just jumps in through there. So that's great. We can actually just take that out because we don't want it. And we can take that. What other bit was it? Oh, did we take it out? And we take that thing there. So if we just go Save, it automatically saves. Now, because you've got that sitting there, what this is really good at, and so I'm going to use Control Shift C inside there, I've actually got my console ready to actually just start editing through here. So on this one here, I actually got the 2 sides of the chart. So I've got this one which is pulling in data from the API, and I've got my other page which is actually pulling in my data from Excel. So that was really pleasing, the fact that I'm actually drawing this through in different ways. And I've got this thing where I've just put them onto 2 different pages, so never the twain shall meet, but we can link across to them. And then I've now got this thing through here where I suddenly thought, right, in some ways, when I was doing the chart through here, this is hard-coded. So it's actually just going to the API, which is basically that fixed API through here, and it's just pulling that data. So this is actually pulling data from New Zealand. So it's NZL, and that's, I think that's the one. And it's just pulling the data through. So, oh no, it's gone funny on me this time. Don't know why that is. Anyway, so that's what it's actually doing. So, and that's hard-coded. And I say, no, I want to go another step further than that. And this is where I've actually been playing at this point in time. And one of the things that I'm actually trying to do now is that I'm now trying to say I want to do some comparative stuff. So I'm just going to, no, I'll leave that up. So what I've actually got here is I've got a start date. And I've got these pull down menus, which are basically just a bit of HTML. And then I've got a bit of JavaScript that goes through and gets the element by the ID. So these are the elements by ID. So the start date I'm going to put as the 13th through there. The end date I'm going to put as the 12th through there. And I'm going to choose a country, USA. And it brings up those data for there. I'm suddenly saying, well, for that period, what's the data look like for New Zealand? That's the information there. So I've got daily changes and I've got cumulative. But again, I find these cumulative ones don't really tell you too much unless you actually get that rolling off and going flat and then the recovered blasting up like mad and taking over for those things. So this one here is that I can then do a comparison. Now, if I just refresh that, what I've actually got at the beginning is that I actually break the code, is that I just don't give them a string. Now this is where I'm using these template literals through here to actually create my URL. So what it's saying in here is that I can actually put a bit of HTML in here, and in the middle of the HTML I can embed a bit of JavaScript. So the JavaScript here is giving me my start day, my end day, through these functions through here based on what's being pulled down and selected through here. So again, I can actually just put another option through here and just go the end. Whoops, bugger. End, and I've got to go through and put end there. And so if I go Control, save there. Now if I look down through here, I've got India as well. So that's quite good. So it starts off with these empty strings, and it's only when I populate them. Now, one of the things with this, I just want to point out at the moment, it's pretty delicate. It's not robust enough for me in a way, but it's a first start where I've got these things to actually be able to put in choices using the template literal, is that I can now select a date. Now, look what happens here. I'm going to choose that same date and I'm going to choose a country, USA. Now, what you actually see is that one of the strings is still empty because it's only, the code is up here on change, which is not what I want. Because if I don't change that, you see now I've got to go back through all of them and change all of them. So I change that to the 10th and I change that to India. Now I'm going to go through and fire up and get that data. So at the moment, the principles are there. I've got the coding, I've got the thing to do. Now I've actually got to make it a little bit more robust as to how things are actually working. But I've got charts coming up. I've got a bit of dynamic information coming through here, and I can choose start doing comparative things with a whole lot of things. At the moment, I'm actually just doing that. I don't like that. Where's that? Control save through there, and we get that back up to there. I've got this slight thing here. I can't quite figure out what that is. The code here is very, very crude. Now, one of the things I actually did before, when I actually did, oh no, I can't do that. I'm just going to do that, and I'm just going to go back to that one. And sorry, I'm going to preset these back to here, and then go from there to there to there. What was actually happening, if I went and changed this to another date through here, you'll find, now look at this. What I've actually done through here is after I've run it once, it should come through and make all of my arrays empty, but it still switches between both of them. And if I've got three, it actually switches between all three. So something's not quite happening. I don't know where it's holding that information. Maybe it's a cache on the page, but it shouldn't quite. So it isn't as robust, as I said, as to what I want it to be. This one seems to be a lot more stable. That one seems to be a lot more unstable. Some of these now crash through there. So that's as far as I've got. So starting off doing some web scraping, was very happy with that package. Moving through to actually using an API for some calls, very happy with that. At the moment, I'm doing specific calls on one bit of API. I'd like to actually put global information, and inside the GitHub there is something to actually get global information that you can do, so that you can get the latest date of stuff to put just as a dashboard type thing, that later information on. So I hope that's been of interest to you. I will put a link to this code. I'll need to store it up on my server, and I'll also put a link to all of these videos. I hope that's been of interest to you. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope it helps you. Thank you.